Hey y'all, and welcome back to Homesteadin in the City. I'm April, and today we're going to be making corned beef for the first time. So this is the little cooking segment where I make something that I've never made before. And so I had some briskets and decided, hey, I've never made corned beef. Let me try that process. So I did a little bit of internet research and I came across a website, keviniscooking.com, and so that is the website that I'm using as a guide to make brisket for the first time. So let's get started. This is going to be a process that's going to take several days, and so I wanted to take you from the beginning to the end. And so we are going to put together the brine, and then this brisket is going to have to brine for 5 to 10 days. And my cut of meat is not quite 3 pounds, so I think like 2.5, 2.75 pounds. So I'm cutting back some of his ingredients, and I'll explain that as we go. So let's get into it. For the brine, we're going to have to boil everything and dissolve all the salt. So I'm going to start with about 3 quarts of water. Since my brisket's smaller than 5 pounds, which is what the recipe from the website is basing off of, so I'm just decreasing a little bit. And so we've got our water, and then we're going to put in some kosher salt. I'm doing over 1/2 cup. And then some brown sugar. For me, I'm doing a little bit more than 1/4 cup. Then we have our pickling spice blend. And so I was going to make Kevin's recipe from Kevin is Cooking, but I did not have easy access to some of the ingredients, so I found a store-bought blend, and I just added some peppercorns to it, since it has most of the ingredients he called for, but not all of them. Then the other thing that we need that I did have to order online was this pink curing salt. And it's not the same as table salt. You don't want to use it to eat, but this is to eat like it's like, you know, as you're seasoning your food, but this is pickling salt, and I think we're gonna do about 1.5 teaspoons. And this is just this is what gives corned beef its pink color. And they add some dye to the salt so you don't get it mixed up with your other salt. And then the other thing that I almost forgot, I just smashed a few garlic cloves, and we're gonna throw them in here too. Now I'm going to give this a stir. Start trying to dissolve everything. Get it all mixed together. Then we're gonna cover that over and let it come to a boil. Okay, so our brining liquid is coming up to a boil. So I'm going to give it a little stir. So we just want to get everything dissolved and mixing together. Then I'm going to cut the heat off and set it over to the side. And now this liquid has to cool before we can put it over the brisket. Okay, so our brining liquid has cooled down, and I shot a video where I was covering over the brisket with it, but I forgot to turn the microphone on, so it's completely quiet. So as you can see, I've covered the brisket in the brining liquid. The aromatics are already amazing, and so this is going to go in the fridge for a few days. So it takes about 5 to 10 days for it to cure. So I don't know if I'm going to do the whole 10 days, But in about 3 or 4 days, we're going to check on it and flip the meat over and give it a few more days after that. And so this is going in the fridge, and I'll see you in a few days. It has been 4 days since we started the brine for our corned beef. And so the instructions said about halfway through to flip the beef over. So the other side, I guess, mine's pretty covered, but still, it might help it with the spices or whatever. So today is actually Christmas Day. So before I begin my festivities, I'm gonna flip my beef. Oh, it does smell very aromatic. Also, I'm in my she shed because that is where the fridge in this shed had more room than my fridge in my house. So it's been out in the shed fridge. But we've got our corned beef turned, and so in about 4 more days, I think, because I think I'm going to give it about 8 days, 7 or 8 days. So a few more days, we'll take it out and we'll braise it. Today is the day. Our brisket has been brining for about 7 days. I decided to do 7 days. It works best with my schedule. And I think that'll be enough for the time it's taken. You can do between 5 and 10 days. And some people think 10 days is maybe too much. So, we're gonna move the brisket from our brine and then pop it into our Dutch oven here. Okay, so my original plan to braise this in the Dutch oven kind of fell through because I did not consider how much all the vegetables would take up. So, we're gonna shift to a roasting pan. Whoops. Look at me, I'm always clumsy. So, we've taken 1 head of cabbage and quartered it. I'm going to put that in here. In fact, let me take you around. Okay, now we're back on track. I've got the stuff moved to the roasting pan, so we're going to add more potatoes around. The original recipe called for red skin potatoes, but I had Yukon Gold, so that's what we're going to do. And then we're also going to add some carrots. Put the carrots in. Now, the original size in the recipe that I'm kind of basing this off of instructions called for a 5-pound brisket. This one's about 2.5. So, but still all the vegetables have taken up a lot of space. So, we're going to add now some beef broth. And it called for 4 cups. Since this is a smaller brisket, I'm not using quite as much, but I think because of all the vegetables, we're gonna actually need more. The other thing that I need to do is add some more pickling spice. About a tablespoon-ish of pickling spice goes back in this as well. And then I want to do a little bit more broth on top of all this. And also the recipe that I'm following, it wanted you to boil everything before popping in the oven. But if I'm going off of braised meats like I've done before, I've not boiled them and they've been fine. So, I'm going to cover this over in foil and just pop it directly in the oven because there's no way that we can boil this on the stovetop before popping it in the oven. Alright, I'm going to cover this in foil. And we're going to stick this in the oven. Now, the brisket corned beef is going to stay in the oven. It's probably going to take it about 3.5 hours. Maybe a little less because the cut of meat is smaller than the time suggested. But I think I'm going to check it in about an hour, hour and a half, and see how it's doing, see if more liquid needs to be added, how it's all coming along. I have this in the oven for about an hour and a half, and let's see how it's looking. Now I'm going to just try to flip the meat. Flip it over so the other side can get in there. But our veggies are looking good. Meat's looking good. And so now let's give it another, actually let me check the temperature. Okay, so after an hour and a half for this cut, we're about to what we need. But I'm gonna let it go for a little bit longer. So let's cover this back up. Because we're looking at about a temperature 190 to 200. I think what I'm gonna do is drop the temperature of the oven down to 300 and stick this back in for just a little while longer. Maybe about 45 minutes. And we'll see if it's any good by the time we get done. So 45 minutes, then we'll check it. The brisket took less time than I thought it was going to come up to temperature. You want it around 190, 200 degrees. So I'm not sure. I've had this resting for a little while. And so it feels to me like it might be a little bit tough, like tougher than I would have wanted. But I'm gonna slice up a good piece and we're gonna try it. It's time for the moment of truth. We do have that nice pink color thanks to our pink pickling salt. So it's not because the meat is undercooked that corned beef is pink. And so yeah, it is, this way of doing it is tougher than I would have liked. I don't know if I got calculations wrong in the brining or if it was with the cooking. I was going by what that website said, putting it in at 350. But I know whenever I braise other meats, the temperature is usually a lot lower. We go longer. We go lower and slower. So, while it's not bad, and has a great taste, and everything is good there, the texture is off for me. So, that's what I've learned with my first go of making corned beef. Yeah, flavor is there. Texture, I'd prefer it to be a little more tender. I will say, all my vegetables turned out great. We've got carrots here. We've got our wedges of cabbage, potatoes. So it's all edible, all good. The vegetables are really tender, and I'm looking forward to digging into those as well. But yeah, I think with the meat, when I do this again, we're definitely going to go at a lower temperature for a lot longer. And so, when we do round 2, I'll show you round 2. And yeah, we're just going to work till we get some of the best corned beef we've ever had. The cabbage is good. vegetables turned out perfect. So, that's what I've learned from making corned beef for the first time. Learn from some of my mistakes, and yeah, still a good product though. But this has been Make It for the First Time with April and Homesteading in the City. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hope you learned something, and we will continue to learn together. See you later.